Today's reading is from the Rays of the One Light, which are weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. And today is week 18. Perfection is self-transcendence. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. We begin this week with a passage from the Gospel of St. Matthew in chapter 5. Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. If ye love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the tax collectors the same? And if ye salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even pagans so? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. This teaching is a continuation of last week's lesson. To love all equally is possible only by seeing God everywhere, in others as well as in oneself. See whatever comes to you unasked for as a manifestation of His will. Be grateful for the pains you experience, for they are healing strokes of His love. Sometimes healing is effected only by strong measures, but His love for you is manifested in the very attempt to heal. Strive always to be impersonal, as though whatever happens to you were happening to someone else. Persecution gives us the supreme opportunity to deny the thought, this is happening to me, and to affirm our inner freedom from the thought of ego. Don't allow the negative perceptions of others to become your own self-definition. Seek God. This is the true goal of life, though how difficult to cling to it in the midst of hatred, spite, and persecution. The Bhagavad Gita tells us in the 7th chapter, out of thousands, one strives for spiritual attainment, and out of many blessed truth seekers who strive assiduously to reach me, one perhaps perceives me as I am. O truth seeker, be one among all those thousands who seek the supreme goal. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Good morning again. This passage from the Bible is so inspiring. I wanted to read the fuller excerpt of Jesus' words, and in this modern day of, well, I would say political correctness, but now we just say sensitivity to the diversity of this world. My apologies to all tax collectors and pagans. Really, of course, Jesus was saying, does not everyone do so? So, with that in mind. Jesus was speaking here also to his disciples. He was not speaking to the masses, the crowds. He was speaking to those who came to him for spiritual teaching, who said, we want to be like you, and who had accepted him as their teacher. So this was a very specific and inward teaching. And he says, ye have heard that it hath been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thine enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he maketh his sun, which is S-U-N, for he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love them which love you, what reward have ye? Do not even the tax collectors the same? And if ye salute your brethren only, what do ye more than others? Do not even the pagans so? Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven, is perfect. These words, of course, are an incredible, they hold out the mountaintop to us. The mountaintop of what the challenge we have before us and also what the attainment would look like. At first, the ego kind of recoils against this. Can you really bless them that curse you? Can you really do good to those who hate you? I mean, it's a bit difficult, actually. I remember being in a particular context long ago. I was actually participating in a protest of sorts, and I was holding up, someone else was holding up a sign, and I was standing next to the person also kind of as a spiritual bodyguard. And someone came up to us, and the person next to me kind of thought, oh, someone is coming to sort of reach out to us to ask us why we're here. And the woman just said something about life, is all we heard at first. And so my friend just said, yes, life? And she said, you need to get a life. And my friend just kind of went, and automatically I just said, God bless you. Because it was either that or something else, and I didn't want to say the other thing. And it just came out, and I thought, okay, not bad. You know, you just sort of practice this all the time, and then when the moment is sprung on you, okay. It's kind of like when you almost get in a car accident. It's important to kind of monitor what, I was with a friend, and they almost, my friend was telling me she was with her mother, and they almost hit a car, and her mom just went, Om! And they didn't hit the car. And she was relieved that it was her mother who spoke, because, again, what was going to come out of her mouth was something very different from Om. And it's a good test for us as to where our consciousness is what do we say when we think this might be it? And so, and yet, at the same time, if we can love, I said it's a challenge, but if we can love those who curse us and do good unto those who hate us, we somehow feel that that would be good. That would be better. Because first of all, people who are attacking us, as Haridas said a few weeks ago, they're just kicking in their sleep. They don't really mean to do these things usually. And if they do, then oh well, it's even worse. But they'll wake up. And meanwhile, if we can feel that way towards them, then we somehow know, then I'll feel at peace. Because one of the biggest challenges in our lives can come from other people, other people's persecution, or other people's indifference. And we can feel that, well, if I don't mind that, then I would just be happy all the time. But this is still not enough in terms of what Jesus says. He doesn't end there, saying basically do the opposite of, what your ego tells you to do, and that's good enough. He says, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect. He said the Father gives the rain unto the unjust and the just alike. And there was a time in the Catholic history where umbrellas were outlawed because they would prevent the rain from falling on one's own head. And the rain is supposed to fall equally on the heads of the just and the unjust. I'm not kidding, actually. But still, it comes to be ye therefore perfect. And at least my first impression on reading this was, really? Be ye therefore perfect even as God is perfect? And in fact, some translations of the Bible say, well, it can't really mean perfect. And so it says, be ye therefore good, even as God is good. But Jesus said perfect. So how do we attain this perfection that he's calling us to? That's the purpose, that's the meaning of the title of today's service. The perfection is self-transcendence. Perfection is not something we can attain outwardly. And we all know this because probably we've all tried. You know, you start to work on, okay, I'm going to always be patient. I'm just, you know, I've got a short temper and I want to always be patient. And then, you know, something happens and we just kind of go, I'm so patient, I'm so patient. I told you this story some time ago, but I can't resist telling it again. Someone told me some time ago, I was telling them about how when I drive into the Trader Joe's parking lot, that I know it's not easy to park over here on La Brea and 3rd, but that's okay because somebody is leaving the store. I mean, they have to be. As many as going in are coming out, so someone will come, and it'll be my turn, and then I'm behind a long line of cars, and then, of course, the one car just cuts in front of us all and then gets the spot, and I figure, well, eventually it'll be my turn. It's not always fair that first in is the first in the spot. Maybe mine will be the last parking space available, but it will be there. So I was telling my friend that this is how I was negotiating the parking lot. And my friend said, "You're so patient." And I thought, well, yeah, I guess so. Not quite detecting the danger in that indulgence. And so the next time I had to go to Trader Joe's, I went, I'm so patient. This is a piece of cake. And different people are cutting in front of me, and I'm going, that's okay. I'm patient. I'm patient with you. Have your spot. I'm sure you need it more than I do. That's okay. And then I went to Trader Joe's, and I got all my things, and I got out, and I was getting a little hungry and a little thirsty and a little tired, but that was fine because I was patient. And so I backed out, and I got, I drove. So of course, as soon as I backed out, somebody grabbed the spot, and then I went out onto La Brea and turned right, and then realized I had forgotten something. And I just went, and all the patience flew out the window. Because the sheer effort to be so patient had tired me out. Just like we would sometimes do the energization exercises in a class, and we do them like 3 different times with people, and people are like, I'm so tired from doing these energization exercises. So the ego itself realizes if I try to get one thing right, well, there's 100 other things that I'm not right. Maybe I am patient, but maybe I'm not doing enough. Maybe I'm too patient without actually putting out enough energy. And so we repeatedly bump up against these limitations. And this is if you're spiritually minded. If you're not spiritually minded, then this may have manifested, at least for me, as a child. I was seeking some kind of expansion, some kind of perfection. And the only thing I saw before me was in my career, which happened to be in academia. I was trying to be a computer scientist or mathematician. And so the perfection that is sort of held out before such people was what? Maybe like the Nobel Prize or something like that. In mathematics, it's called the Fields Medal. But just like, okay, I will strive for the ultimate attainment. And then it kind of hit me that, well, even if I got that prize, I still wouldn't be the greatest because, like, Isaac Newton and Einstein, they're dead and they already did way more than, I could ever do. And so there's this sense of I want to be more than I am, and I can't. There's some limitation. And that's where we come to perfection is not outer perfection. In fact, we live in the city of, you could say, in some ways Los Angeles is the capital of outer perfection. And that has a higher octave. Beauty is a real principle. It's an important thing. And to choose something that's beautiful and to make something beautiful is a real value. And I don't say that's the only way that, Los Angeles manifests its aspirations, but it certainly is the higher way. I learned this because I was working with a friend in a school together, and she wanted to get a computer, and she wanted to get an iMac. And this was I don't know if you remember, but they were kind that had like a half cantaloupe bottom and then a neck and then a flat screen. And so she had enough money and she wanted to buy that, and I tried to explain to her that she could save a lot of money if she got one that looked just like a big TV, you know, just with a big curved back, a CRT monitor and everything. It did the same thing. It was just as fast, but it was a lot cheaper because it was built this way. And she said, "But Dharmaraj, it's ugly." And of course, I was still kind of, you know, in the computer science days, like thinking CPU, RAM, you know, bus speed, you know, it's all the same. And I said, "Yes, but it's the same, and it's half the price." She said, "But if it's ugly, I won't use it." And I went, "Oh. That's not at all something that I was raised with," and I had to admit there's a certain appeal, because once you save that money, then 2 years later, do you think, "Oh, I still have that $400, or do you think, "My computer is ugly that I use every day"? And so I think she was right, and it really taught me something. Now, perfection is self-transcendence. Why? Because we can't perfect ourselves outwardly, but if we just simply open up to God, God comes in and He's perfect. And that's how we reach perfection. Just by saying, "You know what? I am surrendering the whole show. You just come in, flow through me, let your perfection flow through me, and I will become perfect along the way." Sometimes we can be vehicles for this without even knowing it. I remember a friend came up to me once in the Ananda Palo Alto community where I lived, and she said, we were talking about something, and she said, "Well, it's a challenge, but I remember as you told me once, sometimes the most important thing is to chant Om." And I said, "Huh?" She said, "Yes, you said sometimes all you can do is chant Om 3 times. I thought, I never said that. Doesn't sound like me at all. I don't, you know, I don't even do that. So I mean, why would I say that? And she said, you know, I kind of concealed some of this, and she said, "It has just, you know, gotten me through so many difficulties." I thought, what is, you know, this is Dharmaraj? I mean, we're, you know, are we in the same yuga? And so I had to just think, and I was trying to think of when. I said, "When did I say it?" She said, "Oh, when we were in the laundry room." And so I had to think, I mean, because I've had 2 conversations with this person, so it wasn't too hard to pin down in memories past. Okay, the one conversation in the laundry room, and I was trying to think of it, and I finally remembered that what I had said was, sometimes there's nothing to do but Om, Om, Om. And this was kind of a slang we use at Ananda among certain friends, is you kind of just, when you're done with something like, well, Om, 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 kind of like saying, you know, good luck, or, you know, all the best, or, you know, Godspeed. We just say Om, 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 kind of, it's almost a throwaway. And she had taken this for what it really is, as if you're an Om, nothing can touch you, that it's a real, actual spiritual teaching. I was completely unaware of, and I learned something from her this way. So again, we never know what is coming through us to others. A friend of mine was telling me a story recently of how she was in Staples, and she was in a very bad mood, and she was having to make copies, and I'm sure that this copier was out of order, and that she was in line, and then one person said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'll be just a second. I just have this one thing to make 100 copies of," and then went, and so then she got there, and she was just like, and she was doing this photocopying, and then she saw this guy kind of looking at her, and she was trying to become more grim, like the last thing I want to do is talk to some guy. And so she's just like, and this guy came up to her and just said, "You must have the kindest face I think I've ever seen." And she just, oh. Yeah, just. So she, in a way, was a channel without knowing, and he was a channel too. So let that be our goal, to say, Lord, I can't go through this spiral staircase of outer perfection. I'll never make it. It's a funny staircase, too, as we try to climb it, because it doesn't just go uniformly up. It goes down, too, and then up again, and then kind of loops around backwards and all kinds of things. But instead of worrying about the outer perfection of our personalities or our health or our bodies or anything, we have to care for these things, certainly, but perfection, no. Just get into the elevator of God's consciousness and go straight to the top. And this is, in fact, literally true. On a deeper level, we have to ask, okay, fine, I want to be perfect as God in heaven is perfect. How? And this is where we come to the teachings of yoga, because yoga gives us the science of meditation, of all the practices that we can do to help us to feel devotion when we don't feel any devotion, to help us feel patient when we don't feel patient. Even on a medical level, you can verify this, that when you meditate, it takes you out of your primitive brain, which is called the limbic system. It's about the size of a fist inside your brain. It's kind of like a subnetwork. And it controls fight or flight. And that's good, because if this thing were, hot, I would pull away from it without deciding, something's burning. Oh, it's my hand. Do you think I should let go? What do you all think? You don't have any of this. It's just kind of protect yourself. Fine. But the problem is that this fight or flight response can also run things when we open the fridge and there's no milk. Ah! Just like, this is not the same as life and death. But we can sometimes feel that it is. That's the limbic system running us. And so when you meditate, it takes you out of the limbic system and into the prefrontal lobes of the brain. This is the most evolved part of the brain, where higher decision-making and creativity and also happiness are centered, according to medical science. The great news is that if you meditate regularly, then your brain activity is centered more here all the time. Not just when you're meditating, but all the time, habitually. And your limbic system is quiet. And that's one reason that I'm sure you've experienced as you've meditated, that you actually do feel calmer. It takes more to raise your ire, so to speak. As a friend of mine put it, he said, now that I practice Kriya, that whole part of my brain that just was focused on worry has just gone away. And so this, I don't say, is why meditation works, but I say it is a physical manifestation of the fact that meditation works. Because we are raising our consciousness. And you can't always do that by sheer affirmation. I mean, affirmation is important, prayer is important, but it's not enough. Or rather, it's not as effective as this science of yoga, meditation, and particular Kriya Yoga. Because our imperfections are, you can say, are these little seeds of karma that are stored in our spine. This is going very deep, but why not? Here we are. And so the way we become free of these imperfections is not by clearing each one of them out, but by raising the energy in our spine which roasts these seeds. And as they get roasted, then, well, they can't grow. If you burn up a seed and then plant it in the ground, nothing happens. And that's how Kriya, the practice of Kriya Yoga, frees us. And so it's extremely effective in becoming a clear channel for God. And so I wanted to say one more thing about the Bhagavad Gita statement. It's one of the ones Yogananda quoted all the time. He said, it's out of 1,000, one seeks me. And out of 1,000 that seek me, one knows me as I am. Now, at first, we can hear this and it can sound a little discouraging, just like, gee, 1 out of 1,000. I mean, how many people in this room? And okay, I hope I can, wow, that's not even 1%. That's like, 0.1%. Ugh. No. If you're in this room, you're actually already 1 of 1,000. Because if you're in any place on Sunday really seeking God honestly, you're saying, yeah, I mean, I could be asleep right now on Sunday morning, but instead I've come to express my love for God. That makes you one of the 1,000 that seek God. So that's not the point. The point is, if you are here, there are probably 999 other people who aren't here yet. And I don't mean this particular church, this particular room, but in general. So all that is to say is we don't always get outer endorsement or encouragement for everything we're doing. Oh yes, seek God, makes sense, absolutely. On sale now. You don't get any of that, although I have to admit that reminds me of this funny story. Gyandev collects all of these advertisements of, what does he call it? Basically the Maya Awards, the misuse of the teachings of yoga or something like that. But basically how the teachings of yoga can be abused and so on. And so my favorite one that he said that won the meditation prize was, it was an advertisement for a meditation class, and it said, meditate like a guru or your money back. So that's about as good as the guy who went to see a psychic to find out who he would be in his next life so he could will all his money to that person. So, I lost my train of thought now. Yes, thank you. So we can't always expect that out of 1,000 one seeks me, that therefore the other 999 are going to applaud what we're doing. They will in time, when they become one of the 1,000 too. And it's not that we are special, and therefore we've become one of 1,000. It just means that we have suffered enough, or loved enough to say, Lord, I want you, I don't want this show. And so everyone has that destiny. Everyone is on the spiral staircase. And as you get higher on the spiral staircase, you say, forget this, I want the elevator, and just take the elevator home. And Yogananda also said, saying, Krishna said, out of 1,000 that seek me, and out of 1,000 who seek me, one knows me. He said, our percentages are far, far ahead. And so take heart in this. I wanted to close with this reading from Whispers from Eternity. Thou art slowly rising on the horizon of my mind. O Father, I pray that my storm-tossed soul may find the silver lining of thy presence behind the clouds of my indifference. May the moon of thy hope ever gleam upon my heart. Thy inner light slowly rises above the horizon of my mind. Mists of ignorance lift before the moonbeams of thy love. O Father of light, my sorrowing soul beholds, rejoicing, thy shores of bliss.
Life is a dream, time like a stream, carries our burdens away. Never despair, joys everywhere, love may befriend you today. Freed from all care, like birds on the air, soar above griefs and worries, seek joy and be gay. Often on earth, things of great worth, worldly ambition defy. Sometimes a friend helps us ascend up from life's cares to the sky. Love is a star, though shining afar. It can guide us and help us toward light to draw nigh. Love Love is a star, though shining afar. It can guide us and help us toward light to draw nigh.